At this time, Hannah Kim, who will be receiving a Master in Design Studies degree tomorrow, when I know it will be warmer, will introduce our Class Day speaker, our friend Teju Cole. Please, Hannah.
Welcome to Class Day 2019 at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. My name is Hannah Kim, and I am a member of the Master in Design Studies graduating class in the Art, Design, and the Public Domain concentration. I am honored and grateful to have been selected to introduce our speaker, Teju Cole. After the First World War, many people lost families, homes, and passports in a refugee crisis similar to our own contemporary one. A man named Fridtjof Nansen, the High Commissioner of Refugees for the brand new League of Nations, came up with a solution. He created a form of travel document, the Nansen passport, for the approximately 450,000 people who, at the time, did not have any identification. He famously said, "The history of the human race is continual struggle from darkness into light." And in his own way, he helped that struggle along. Through my research and work at the GSD, I aim to follow this example. A set of questions guided my path. Whose voices are ignored and silenced? Who are controlling the narratives that allow for systemic injustice? What are the political, historical, and social blind spots that plague our communities? What happens when we, as creatives, are blind to these issues? The multidisciplinary nature of the GSD gave me the space to consider these questions. In other parts of the university, I was encouraged to address the blind spots of history through the eyes of a designer. For my thesis project, I designed an immigration office that advocates for stateless people, people who don't have citizenship in any country. In my own small way, I too try to help Nansen's struggle along, using design to shed light on darkness and reveal our societal blind spots. I believe that God called me to envision justice and serve others as a designer. And in this journey, I believe our compassion toward one another will illuminate our way. A blind spot is a point of entry on the retina that is insensitive to light. It is also the title of Teju's fourth book, named one of the best books of 2017 by Time magazine. The title actually came from his experience being temporarily blind in his left eye. After this incident, he says, the act of looking became sacred. As designers and urbanists charged with forming the subject of society's glance, of shaping what we look at and how we see it, of embodying meaning in our work that affects people's lives, we can take note of Teju's experience and how he sees sharing his vision as a calling, serious, lighthearted at times, continuously being developed over time. Teju Cole is a novelist, photographer, critic, curator, and the author of 5 books, beginning with his debut, Open City. He has won an array of awards for his writing, including the Hemingway Award in 2011, the Windham Campbell Prize for Fiction in 2015, and a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2018. As a photographer, he has had solo exhibitions throughout US and Europe. Teju has contributed to the New York Times, the New Yorker, Granta, Brick, and many other magazines. His photography column at the New York Times Magazine on photography was a finalist for a 2016 National Magazine Award. Born in the US to Nigerian parents, he is currently the Gore Vidal Professor of the Practice of Creative Writing at Harvard. On behalf of the 2019 graduating class and the entire GSD community, please join me in welcoming Teju Cole.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction, Hannah. I met Hannah an hour ago, and I'm now such a big fan of her work already, and I want to find out what she does next. And thank you for inviting me to address this captive audience. You're not here for me, so in addition to the good news of today that you already know, which is the graduations that you're here to celebrate, I have additional good news. I'll be brief. They said, you know, you're eloquent, you've got the gift of gab, so you could go on for an hour or two. I said, no, please. 25 minutes, maybe. Congratulations to the class of 2019. When I was a boy, I lived in Lagos, Nigeria, with my parents and siblings. In the days I'm speaking about, we rented a 2-bedroom flat in a middle-class section of the city on the top floor of a 3-story house. This was around 1981. My mother was a French teacher. Perhaps if she had not had the care of myself and my siblings, if things had gone differently, she'd have been a diplomat. My father was a mid-level manager in a cocoa processing multinational company. His job took him out of the country often. He went to Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, Korea, the UK, and most frequently, Brazil. The flat, as I've said, was a rental. We did not own our own home, did not even own land. But once, returning from Brazil, my father brought a door back with him, a beautiful wooden door of stained teak, a deep honey color, luminous, gorgeous. It was a mystery. It was slightly absurd, this buying of a door. My father had spent all this money on a magnificent door that he'd had shipped from Sao Paulo. He'd also bought heavy brass handles and locks and a Baroque brass door knocker in the shape of a lion's head that had already acquired a dark patina. Door and door handle and door knocker fit for a cathedral, along with locks and hinges and keys. But this was a man who owned no land. We kept the door in a side room, and it gathered dust. A friend and colleague of his, who was building a house back then, saw the door. This friend said, "Hey, that's a beautiful door. Tell you what, let me buy it from you." My father said no. "I'll pay a lot for it," his friend said. "It really is beautiful." "Not at any price," my father said. My father's quixotic commitment, fully supported by my mother, to an actual door for an unbuilt house on an as yet imaginary plot of land has always stayed with me. Not only as an act of faith, but as a kind of instinct for understanding the symbolic power of portals. I love the ambiguity inherent in door and doorway. It's the door on your left practically means it's a doorway on your left. A door is always taking you out and bringing you in, even when it's taking you out of the inside and bringing you into the outside. In this sense, it's a reflexive technology. A door is a threshold, a through point, a site of potential. imbued with transitional energies. It is the zone of crossings, of what is soon to be but not yet, the kingdom of the ambiguous god Hermes. A door is, to drill down to the dictionary definition, a movable barrier, usually on hinges, demarcating one side of a wall from another. Ogden Nash had a funny definition of a door. A door is whatever a dog is on the wrong side of. Today is a day of doors. The day is a portal. You are on the threshold of what you only recently were, what you are just on the verge of being. You are on your way through. Talk of doors makes me remember the rivalry between Ghiberti and Brunelleschi. Some of you will remember that they were the two leading candidates for the redesign of the doors of an ancient octagonal building, the baptistry, opposite the cathedral in Florence. The year was 1401. The competition panels were high-relief quatrefoil bronze castings of a set subject, the sacrifice of Isaac. The applicants submitted their samples. There were 7 semifinalists. 5 of them fell by the wayside. And Lorenzo Ghiberti and Filippo Brunelleschi were named the finalists. They were both in their early 20s at the time, by the way. No pressure. Brunelleschi's conception of the sacrifice of Isaac was bold, highly dramatic. Abraham's arm outstretched, the angel flying in from the left side of the panel. Ghiberti's was more rhythmic and elegant, extremely fine in detail, more unified compositionally, responsive to the graceful curves of the international Gothic style. The jury couldn't decide. They named the 2 men joint winners and proposed that they work together to design the reliefs for the massive doors. Ghiberti was fine with it, but Brunelleschi was incensed. He thought he should have been the clear winner. Well, that's competition for you, and you all know that hunger to be the best. They both turned out okay, though. Ghiberti, they were fine. Ghiberti designed the doors in gilded bronze, a labor of 21 years. And you can still see them on the north facade of the baptistry. So extraordinary were they that he was commissioned to do the east doors as well. Those took him another 27 years, and they were even better. As for Filippo Brunelleschi, he was so mad that he quit sculpture and headed to Rome to study architecture. It was he who discovered one-point perspective. It was he who designed the dome of the Duomo in Florence, still the largest brick vault in the world. He is considered the father of Renaissance architecture. That's how to be mad. Other people are doors for you. They are what you go through to find yourself in the work. These people can be professors, admired professionals, mentors, and indeed rivals. They can be parents, siblings, lovers, children, friends. Without Ghiberti, Brunelleschi would not have been Brunelleschi, and without Brunelleschi, Ghiberti would not have been Ghiberti. Look around you. These are the people who are going to spur you on to greatness. If you dig into the etymology of the word door, you come up with not a whole lot. Proto-Germanic dur, Old Frisian dore, Proto-Indo-European dver. The general sense is that door in Proto-Indo-European meant a pair of doors, possibly swinging doors. So, door means 2 doors. Well, that doesn't give us much, but it tells us how old the word is and how old its sense is in human civilization. Like hand, like bread, like home. Words we've had as long as we've had words. because we've needed them as long as we've done language. Talk of doors makes me think also of Theophilus Van Kannel, a Philadelphian who was reputed to hate chivalry. After you, please. No, after you, please. Holding the doors for ladies and that sort of thing. He wasn't into it. In 1888, Van Kannel improved on an invention by H. Bockhacker, filing a patent for a storm door structure. It was an energy saver and of great help in particularly busy places. Van Kannel's door is what we know today as a revolving door. This is door as continuous loop, always opening and always closing, and always perhaps on the verge of making you dizzy or putting you into a comic disaster. But talk of doors also reminds me of simpler and less high-tech moments. Perhaps we've thought of a house as a set of walls surmounted by a roof, but think of it, you could almost do without the windows. Some brutalist architects do. What you must have, though, is a door. A house without a doorway, a house without a door, is either a dungeon or a tomb. To be a proper machine for living, it must afford traffic. I love the simplicity and intensity with which the architect Peter Zumthor describes his pre-architectural sensitivity to the material world. He writes, "There was a time when I experienced architecture without thinking about it. Sometimes I can almost feel a particular door handle in my hand, a piece of metal shaped like the back of a spoon. I used to take hold of it when I went into my aunt's garden. That door handle still seems to me like a special sign of entry into a world of different moods and smells." I think, graduates, that whether you have studied landscape architecture or one of the urban planning fields or design, underneath the tremendous learning that you have garnered here is the desire to create work that is experienced materially and without affectation, work that is resonant on a precognitive level, like that door handle Zumthor's aunt affixed to her garden gate, or the door that traveled from one rental to another with us for close to a decade in my childhood. German for door is Tür, but durch is German for through, and this leads me back to the English through, to cross over, to overcome, which indeed is from the same etymological root as door. The door and doorway are one. And yet again, talk of doors makes me think of a journey I took a few years ago overland from Lagos across the so-called Slave Coast in West Africa through Cotonou until we arrived in Ouidah in the Benin Republic. This was a journey into traces of human cruelty. We saw the tree where enslaved people had been chained. We saw the holding pen, now a mere field where thousands had been held. We saw the pit into which the rebellious among them had been thrown to their deaths. Finally, looking out to sea was the modern structure, an arch of concrete and bronze, called the Door of No Return. A door of no return is a contradiction in terms, dousing the generosity of portals, making of them a one-way horror. This horror is what the arch commemorated. Design is not an intellectual exercise. It comes with ethical burdens. The work you will go on to do from here, on the heels of a well-earned and prestigious degree, will in aggregate be influential. But the question of what kind of influence you will have is up to you. We face challenges, and we need you to be a door for us. We are living in a time of toxic patriarchy still. We are living in a time of white supremacy still. There are those who agree to build prisons. There are those who agree to build detention camps. Oppression has always had great use for architects and designers and urban planners. Redlining was a technical skill. And everything that betrays our collective humanity depends on people just like you, with skills just like yours. Fascism, in guises large and small, requires signage and advertising. It requires vivid design and the architecture of enmity. History assures us that many, many people get swept up in the flood of its seduction. Will you be one of those who refuses to participate? Even when you know that there will be no medals for your refusal, even when you're assured that your refusal will only earn you mockery, poverty, or worse. You are the makers. I want to dream for you and implore of you a participation in a making worthy of your skills. Nor are you merely makers. Many of you will go on to teach. You will find yourselves thought leaders in your chosen fields. I want to dream for you and implore of you a foregrounding both of excellence and of compassion. I want to dream for you a making that comes from the heart and quickens the heart, a making that is alert both to human need and human mystery. Talk of doors makes me think of a work by the American artist Robert Gober, a work called Untitled Door and Doorframe. This is a startling installation in which the open doorway directs our attention to a door on the wall on the other side. It's like a thought that leads nowhere but back to itself, a kind of pun on how a door is a synonym for a doorway. Gober's door is a version of the anti-door of the slave forts of Gore and Ouida. It is doorness deconstructed, a powerful and puzzling work. The idea of a door as an opportunity, the symbolic idea, is also very old, maybe only 5 minutes younger than the door as a physical object. It is an obvious metaphor, the way a road is an obvious metaphor, and our ancestors immediately saw it. That thing about being doors for each other, I mean it earnestly. There are lines from Toni Morrison that I'm sure you've heard before, which I'll rehearse here because they remain imperishably apt. She says, I tell my students, when you get these jobs that you have been so brilliantly trained for, remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. This is not just a grab bag candy game. I think about that a lot. In my own practice, I cherish freedom and versatility. It is important to me to attempt to master the various crafts in which I participate. I seek mastery, whether I'm writing a novel or publishing a critical essay or putting together an exhibition of my photographs or of someone else's, or being in the classroom as a professor. It's important, if you're committed to doing many different things, to take them seriously and to do them all well. But expertise is not the destination. We are not worker drones. The destination is freedom. What can we do to free others? Sure, we are experts, but under what ethical pressures does this expertise function? In other words, how do we become a door for others to pass through, an egoless portal to help them get from here to there? It is not a grab bag candy game. It is about seeking openings. It is about you yourself being the opening. Many years later, my parents finally bought a piece of land. It was a modest parcel way on the outskirts of Lagos. The area back then was practically forested, but by degrees, the land was cleared, foundations were made, walls went up, lintels were established, a roof, and finally, like a jewel in a velvet cushion, the large, magnificent door from Brazil was set into the frame of the doorway. Its leonine brass knocker was affixed. Because the door was real in 1981, the house became real in 1989. And when I left home and set out on my American journey at the age of 17 in 1992, it was through this doorway, literally, I stepped out the beautiful, long-nurtured Brazilian door, headed to the Lagos airport, flew to America, and began a new phase of life. One door, and then another, through my studies and through my books, the many doors of life, one door and then another, through my doubts and moments of despair, through exhibitions and through my many cities, through the doors that brought me here to this moment before you on this lovely day, not as lovely weather-wise as we would hope, but lovely in our hearts. And on this lovely day, I'm very happy that by some extraordinary coincidence, both my parents happen to be sitting in the audience, back over there. Thank you. Such is the power of symbolic thinking. And I know you all, as designers and urban planners, as architects and landscape architects, adept at putting feeling into form, are masters of symbolic thinking. Perhaps you'll be the next Ghiberti, the next Brunelleschi, the next Zumthor in terms of fame. Perhaps not. Perhaps you'll have a more modestly scaled career, just as good, but not as famous. But you will do work that allows you to live with yourself. That's the bigger dream. Putting feeling into form in a way that doesn't do violence to what is human in you. Oh, it doesn't have to be spelled out. You always know it when you see it. And all this talk of doors finally makes me think of an incident from this current dispensation in which our country moves closer to its own truth and dread. On the US-Mexico border in the San Diego sector, the wall winds across the terrain like a scar. At the Borderfield State Park, into the wall, and here the wall is like a security fence, is embedded a door, a gate. Since 2013, under the aegis of a nonprofit called Border Angels, that door has briefly swung open 6 times. They call it the door of hope. People from Tijuana and people from San Diego meet each other there for a hug, for a kiss, for a limited family reunion. That open door represents a state of exception, a grace note in a brutal regime of division. This is not where people migrate. It is on no smuggler's path. It is merely a place of some few brief, happy tears, a crack in the armor for the light to get in. Without those on the Mexican side crossing over, and without those on the United States side leaving, long-separated people are united for some precious moments. In November 2017, there was even a wedding there between Brian Houston of Rancho San Diego and Evelia Reyes of Tijuana, under the unsmiling eyes of Border Patrol. And then in January 2018, because our own country is moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear, the door of hope was permanently shut, as though kindness itself had been an offense, as though grace itself had been an intolerable oversight. Door, detour, durch, through. Today is a portal for you, and you are a portal for it. And maybe a bit of chivalry is in order. Honor the ones who have held the door open on your behalf, who have brought you through. Seek out those for whom you might be the opener of the door, those you might bring through. Do not be ashamed of kindness. Do not be ashamed of grace. It's okay to be a human being, even when others around you are being inhumane. As Nas says, the world is yours. This is the good news. We're collectively facing awful times, but we are in your keeping with your big brains and big hearts. Step through the door. The world is yours. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Teju, for such a wonderful, inspiring talk. It's really so incredible to see you linked together in such a wonderful lyrical fashion, the personal to the spatial, to the political, to the ethical, and really also bring it back to this particular audience and do it with such grace, really. I'm grateful. I'm also so happy to know that your parents are here, and they must also be proud of you so much. So, I mean, they should also celebrate you as if you're graduating today. I think it's a great thing, and I really want to congratulate your parents for their vision and for their patience, because also to achieve all the things that you're saying requires patience. Waiting and having the door wait for 8 or 9 years is a long time. So I think everyone, of course, needs to be patient with this thing. So really, thank you so much. And really, once again, many congratulations to everyone, to all of you. It is a wonderful day, and it is a great occasion. So many congratulations. And please join us for the festivities and few drinks and celebrations as we all move into Guggenheim Hall and outside of the building. So congratulations.